What is up, everybody? This is Adam. Welcome back to Fouled Out. Matt is going to be joining me to talk week 16 of the NFL season shortly. We are truly fresh off of week 16 this week because we are recording this on Monday, December 23rd. Shout out to my little sister. Happy birthday. And we're actually recording this during Monday Night Football. So we're operating under the assumption that the Packers are just going to whomp the Saints tonight and that nothing too crazy is going to happen. But if you hear this starting on Tuesday, the 24th, going forward, and something insane happened, that's why we missed it. Also, today, the Red Sox signed starting pitcher Walker Buehler to a 1 year, $20 million contract, move I am very excited about. Still no Red Sox rant from me. I said last week I was going to be patient and wait till the end of the offseason to tell you how I feel about what they did. Definitely earned some points with me. Ownership and management did today with the Walker Buehler signing, but I think there's still a lot of work to do. So if this is it for the offseason, I won't hammer them as much as I did after the Juan Soto debacle, but I still not 100% happy with where we're at. I think there's a few more pieces that need to be added. So we'll hold off on another Red Sox rant for a couple more podcasts. But before we get started, just a reminder, you can reach out to us, fouledoutsports@gmail.com. Really appreciate you guys listening, and we would love to hear from you. Let us know how you're feeling about the first round of the college football playoff. We got the second round in just over a week. The first round was a bit lackluster, seemed to be a lot of diverse opinions on it. So hit us up. Let us know how you feel. With that said, let's grab Matt and let's talk week 16 of the NFL season. It is almost Christmas. I cannot believe that the year has just flown by on us and that the regular season is almost over. But that means we're getting to the best part, the playoffs. The playoffs are always awesome. So let's grab Matt and let's go. All right, Matt is here. Truly fresh off of week 16 of the NFL season. Usually that's a bit of an exaggeration. Not today. Week 16 is not even in the books yet.
I was going to say it's technically not even true yet.
The Monday Night Football game doesn't even start for another 25 minutes. So I said in the opening that I'm just operating under the assumption that the Packers are going to annihilate the Saints tonight. So if something crazy happens, don't blame us. But Matt, I saw you last night and this morning.
Yes.
And now we're doing this. So I imagine that this podcast is going to be a rehashing of the football conversations that we had been having for about 12 to 14 hours.
Basically.
And we got to fit it all into 1 hour. So as it was good to see you in person, though. I don't get to see Matt enough. A weird week of football. It's been like a lot of football this week because we had the Thursday night football game. We had the playoffs on Friday night. You had the first playoff game, 3 playoff games on Saturday for college football, 2 NFL games Saturday, a full Sunday of football, and then a Monday night football game tonight. Not to mention all of the other college bowl games that are going on if you're interested in those. Now we have 1 day off tomorrow before we go into 2 more football games on Christmas Day, a Thursday game, then Saturday games, a Sunday of football, and then another Monday game. So if you love football, this is the 2 or 3 weeks for you, because then next week it's back to college football playoffs and more NFL to wrap up the season. So there's like football every single day right now. Is it too much football for you, or is it like, does it feel right?
It's so much football that I don't necessarily think about there being football at some of these non-traditional football times. So I'll just like hear about it later. I'm like, oh yeah, that did happen, huh?
Wait a minute. The thing that's so weird for me is I've now kind of lost, like, all the weeks are blending together. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, there was Thursday night, because Thursday night was Denver and the Chargers. It was like an important AFC playoff showdown.
Mhm.
Then I was listening to a podcast on Saturday before the Saturday games that was recorded on Wednesday before the Thursday night game. And they were talking about Denver versus the Chargers. And I was like, didn't that game happen like 3 weeks ago? And now it's just there's one day between week 16 and week 17. It's just Tuesday because we have a game tonight, no
Mhm.
games tomorrow, and then games on Wednesday.
Yep.
That I honestly am not even sure what week we're in. And we'll talk about the NFL scheduling decisions in America's most favorite segment later. But yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to keep up with for sure. But that's why we're here to recap it for those who were not able to. But I did really want to rehash some of the conversations we had yesterday because I was like, God, this would make great podcast content. And really, what we probably should have done is just recorded our 12 hours of hanging out and then just edited out all of the times that my son came to show you his pee in
Yes.
his little potty training bowl.
I mean, some would argue that that is the only part to leave in, but
Potentially the best content of this podcast. Just
no sour candy though.
running into the room yelling, I want to show Uncle Matt. And I'm like, I already know what's coming, but I don't think Matt does.
I figured it out after the first time
But
because it kept happening.
by the seventh time, we knew what was coming. But some important stuff for the playoff picture these past couple weeks. And I wanted to start with the NFC. I guess most important thing for you up top, Lions with a really nice bounce back game against the Bears to
Yes.
maintain first place. Philly loses absolute banger to Washington.
Yeah.
Where somehow Washington turns the ball over 5 times and they still win. To give the Lions an edge there, but then Minnesota pulls off another victory against Seattle to get to 13-2. So we have Lions 13-2, Philly 12-3, one game behind them, but Lions with the tiebreaker. And then Minnesota in the number one wild card spot at 13-2. Just kind of hanging out there. Matt, how are you feeling as a Lions fan with 2 weeks left to go?
In terms of the regular season, it's just kind of like what will be, will be. If you told me that we were going to come away with 13 wins this year and potentially not win the division, okay, yeah, I probably would have laughed at you, but like I also wouldn't be upset because we had 13 wins. So we'll see. At the very least, we just need to beat the Vikings, which we've already done. And it'll be on our home turf. So like I'm not really super worried about that. If they don't get it done, they'll get a third chance. It's not something that I'm stressing about because at this point they've just been so damn good all year that I'm kind of trusting this team to get it done.
It is annoying to me, even though I'm not a Lions fan, that you
Yeah.
are 13-2, and yet even having a home playoff game is going to come down to the final week of the season
Yeah.
for you guys, in all likelihood, against a Vikings team that I just every week I'm like, the Vikings, this is it. This is when they're going to lose. Like
Yeah.
Seattle was in a playoff spot, or they're pushing for a playoff spot. I was like, okay, this is it. Someone's going to expose the Vikings. And they just continue to not get exposed. And I think at this point in the season, with 15 weeks or 15 games of data, I just have to say that the Vikings are a good football team. Not as good of a football team as the Lions or the Eagles, even though the
Yeah.
Eagles lost on Sunday, I think. But I I mean, I think we have to admit at this point that the Vikings are a good football team. But they're also a football team I think is faced with the biggest problem potentially of any team in the NFL. We talked about it early in the season when Sam Darnold got off to a good start. Like, hey, if he's really good all year and you have a great season and he's a free agent this summer and you just pick JJ McCarthy in the first round of the last draft,
Mhm.
what do you do now? And that has really come to fruition with Sam Darnold being excellent this season. He's completing 67% of his passes. He's going to throw for 4,000 yards. He's 377.6 right now, 32 touchdowns, 11 picks, and a 13-2 record as the starter. And I think more importantly, when we were watching the Vikings and Seattle game yesterday, Seattle scores to go up late in the game and the Vikings get the ball back. They start driving down. I'm like, I felt very confident that they were going to get it.
Yeah.
Like I was like, Sam Darnold's going to lead them down and score. And now you're faced with this untenable position of you have to decide, do you let Sam Darnold walk and play the rookie you just drafted in the first round last year? Or do you sign Sam Darnold to a long-term deal? And then what do you do with JJ McCarthy?
Mhm.
Do you have a feeling of like, what's your feeling on what they should do? Or like, what do you,
It's it's so hard to say because you really only have this one snapshot of a season of him playing like this to go off of. I think it really kind of comes down to how much does your front office like believe in Darnold versus JJ McCarthy. I think that they probably thought there might have been something there with Darnold and they kind of threw a dart at him. I don't, I'm assuming that they probably didn't foresee this. Can't imagine how that would go if you moved off of McCarthy because you were like, all right, we're all in on Darnold now and pay him. And then he turns back into a pumpkin, right?
I look at what Sam's done this season though, and
Yeah.
how excellent he's been. And I'm like, how can you let a guy go who's going to win
Yeah.
at a minimum 13 games,
I
have an
know.
excellent season doing it?
Yeah.
Like, how can you just let that guy walk when you know he can be successful in your system?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, okay, what's more valuable though? Signing, like
Yeah.
taking the risk and signing Sam Darnold for 40 plus $1 million a year? Because that's what it's going to
Yeah.
cost.
How do you fire a coach that goes 14-2? You know?
Well, only the Chargers are always going to charge. But like, it's like, how do you let this guy go and
Yeah.
switch to JJ McCarthy, who, like, I think the really, really hard thing with McCarthy is that he's been hurt all year and they
Yeah.
haven't even seen him
You
in
don't
practice.
know what you have.
He looked good in preseason, but is that
Yeah.
enough to let go of a guy who won 13 football games
Yeah.
and was excellent doing so?
I think the reality is that because he's played, they're at the very least going to franchise him and play him for another year.
That may be the way to
Which
go.
which when you really think about it is kind of hilarious because it's starting to kind of head down that Kirk Cousins road again.
But what is like, what's a franchise tag for a quarterback next year? 50 something million for
Yeah,
a year. And then like,
it's going to be over 50,
what
probably at
if
least 55.
if he's great again and you just kick the can down the road a season? Now, are you paying him $50 million a season? If he has two of these years, I don't, it's a tough decision. I was
Yeah,
thinking about it, and this is one of the things that we talked about yesterday was I wonder, looking at this draft, the NFL draft that's coming up, I I think we both agree it's not a good quarterback draft.
yeah,
And I still, every mock I see still has Shadur Sanders and Cam Ward going in the top five. Like it was the top two until the Raiders won this weekend, which we could talk about later, and drop themselves from the number 2 pick to the number 6 pick. Thank you, Mac Jones, for losing that one. But there are what, 5 teams in the top 10 who need a quarterback, and there's 2 quarterbacks who could potentially be considered first round picks. I am not convinced that the NFL values these guys as much as mock drafters do.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're necessarily in the like Kenny Pickett draft situation where mocks are going to have like 4 quarterbacks going in the first and like one goes at 22 and no more go to the third. But I don't know that Shador Sanders is the number 1 pick in this draft. I don't know that Cam
Yeah.
Ward goes 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Still have a lot of work to do on these guys when the offseason hits, but I definitely trust Cam Ward a lot more than I do Shador Sanders. With Shador, I very much kind of feel like there is this element of the media hype, the connection to Dion has kind of forced him into the spotlight enough so that like he just kind of gets shoved up the prospect list in a way that like his play on the field hasn't necessarily earned.
Yeah,
He is I and that's not to say that he hasn't earned, the right to like be considered to be drafted in the NFL, but I above Travis Hunter, Mason Graham, like the top tackles, like yeah, I haven't seen anything like that.
I think Shadur is a really high profile guy in general because of all the stuff you mentioned.
Yep.
And that, like I said, I think mock drafters, even the people like Tankathon and like Walter
Hmm.
Football and like all the people who get paid to do this stuff, I
Yeah.
think the mock drafters just overvalue the quarterbacks in general. And obviously it's December 23rd. It'll be very, very different in late April when we're actually drafting guys. But I just wonder from the Vikings perspective. So you have the Giants, the Titans, the Raiders, the Jets, and the Saints all in the top 10 who all need quarterbacks of the future. Would one of those 5 teams be willing to part with a top 10 pick for JJ McCarthy? Because I think it's a lot more palatable to one, bring back Sam Darnold, who you know has played well in your system. Watching the game yesterday, his teammates obviously love him. Like he throws
Hmm.
that go ahead touchdown pass to Justin to Justin Jefferson, and his linemen are like jumping on his shoulders, hugging him. Like they obviously really like him. But if it's hard to like not go to the rookie that you just drafted in the first round, and it's a lot more palatable if you get a first round pick and you're like, hey, we were able to add Will Johnson or Abdul Carter or Kelvin Banks, like an offensive lineman with what's his face getting hurt, their left tackle.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot more palatable to do it that way than it is to be like, hey, we're just going to let Sam Darnold go in free agency. Thanks for everything. We're going to the rookie who we haven't even seen practice this year because we think he's going to be good. We liked his college stuff. And it is not like JJ McCarthy was a prospect without a lot of question marks. Like we talked about it ad nauseum
Yeah.
before the draft, after the draft, in the preseason. Like there are still a lot of question marks with him. He's
Yeah.
not. It's not like you drafted like Jaden Daniels or Caleb Williams and like they're chomping at the bit to necessarily play this guy.
I think too, you have to kind of acknowledge the fact that like if you do go the route of okay, yeah, like Sam's our guy, you would have to be an absolute saint of a human being to sit there for a second season as JJ McCarthy and be the backup without ever having actually had a chance to compete for the job. And not we know that the reality is that that's not something that's going to happen. They're going to have to choose.
Yeah, they
He,
cannot bring both guys back next season,
yeah,
in my opinion. I think we could talk about the Falcons in a second, but I think it was the same thing with the Falcons after switching to Penix from Cousins. It's like both of these guys cannot come back next season. Did you need to announce it in week 15?
yeah,
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But so I agree. Like I do not think they can bring back both guys next offseason or next season because this is going to be, I think, the highest that JJ McCarthy's value will ever be unless he plays and proves to be good. He's still a first round pick 1 year ago. He looked good in the preseason. He missed this season with a meniscus tear. You know, he still learned from Kevin O'Connell, who you've seen what he's done with
hmm
Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and Matt Stafford when he was the offensive coordinator. Not that not that Stafford was a reclamation project, but
yeah,
to win the Super Bowl with him as the offensive coordinator is
yeah,
like that's a big deal. And so you're like, oh yeah, we get this guy who's learned. And I just look at the draft board again, and I'm like, if JJ McCarthy was in this draft coming out of Michigan, is he valued higher than Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward? And I think there's a chance that he might have been with his
yeah,
physicals and
yep.
his record and reputation at Michigan. I
hmm
think he could have been QB1 in this draft. And if I'm a QB needy team, like maybe it's not the Giants at number one overall that's willing to do that deal. But like I start looking at teams like the Raiders at 6, who just played their way out of getting one of these quarterbacks. The Jets at 8, who it's like, what are they going to do with Rodgers? Are they ready to
hmm
just start over? And then even like, especially the Saints, who are in a bad, bad, bad cap situation and need to find a cheap way going forward to trade the 10 pick for, and maybe the pick will be worse by then, but to trade
Yeah,
the 10 pick right now for a guy who would probably be a top 10 pick in this draft. Like, I think you could sell that to your fans and be like, hey, look, like this is a better option, especially if Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are gone at 10.
yep,
This is a better option than whoever else is on this board. There's not even any, no mocks have a third quarterback. Jalen Milroe, Quinn Ewers, like these guys are day 2 picks. I would much rather have JJ McCarthy than one of those guys. So I wonder if that's an
yeah.
option. I think that's more palatable for Vikings fans. We should probably message the Viking fans that have been on this podcast before, see how they feel about it. But I think it's such a hard spot. Good problem to have, I guess, to have like two pretty talented guys, two guys you invested in who may be good options. But I also think that you had a good point this weekend talking about the playoffs and
hmm
like, if they go into the round one playoff game against the Falcons or Bucks or Rams, whoever they end up playing, or Sam Darnold shits the bed, like, does that change the math here?
Yeah. This is a franchise that like it's not like Vikings have never been to the dance before, right? Like they've been in the playoffs, making something from making the playoffs that has kind of been the issue. Yeah, if he gets them there, that's all well and good, but I do think that it's what you do when you get there that was like really the sticking point.
But also remember the last time the Vikings even made a little bit of a playoff run, Case Keenum was their quarterback.
Yes.
I'm like, how do the Vikings keep getting in this situation where it's these guys who are like, okay, he's not the long term solution, but he won 12 games. So what do we do? Because that was the same thing with Case Keenum. Is like Case
Yeah.
was good for them in the regular season that year and had the Minnesota Miracle to get them to the second round. It's like, oh, okay. Um, but yeah, the other team we mentioned who's kind of in a similar situation, but has seemingly already botched it is the Atlanta Falcons, who like didn't announce it, but it was leaked by a lot of credible sources that they will be cutting Kirk Cousins this
They
offseason.
they botched the situation when they created it and
It
then just continue to further botch it from there.
It's so bad. Like we were talking. This is another thing we were talking about yesterday. Is like, okay, so they signed Kirk Cousins to what was it, 4 years, 180 million, with like a very large portion of that being
Af-
guaranteed
After tampering.
after tampering to get him. Then 6 weeks later in the NFL draft, they draft Michael Penix with the eighth pick in the draft or whatever it was, sixth
Yeah,
pick,
something like that.
something like that. They don't let Penix basically play in the preseason because they don't want the fans to be like rooting for Penix to play. Kirk plays and was good to start the year, was horrific for like the 5 games in a row. And then they're like, okay, we're going to Penix. And then before Penix even takes a single snap, reports start coming out that they're ready to cut ties with Kirk Cousins this offseason and basically like pay the bill they got to pay and get him out of town. It just the timing of it is so Falcons, where your rookie quarterback has not thrown a single pass yet, and you're already like, yeah, we're getting rid of this guy that we could like. So what if Penix gets hurt and you need Kirk Cousins in
Yeah.
the playoffs, or like there's so many situations where you could still need Kirk Cousins this season, and you're already like casting him out. And honestly, Michael Penix, like they won 34-7 on Sunday, and Michael Penix was not particularly good, didn't really do anything. So we haven't seen any proof that Penix is even good yet. And you're already just being like, yeah, we're done with Kirk Cousins. He's out of here.
You know who's probably the weak?
Kirk Cousins.
Arthur Blank.
I honestly, nothing would surprise me less than Arthur Blank being like, yeah, he's just like calling Adam Schefter and he's like, hey, start putting it out there that Kirk Cousins is
I
gone.
kind of just needed to talk to you about this. I just want to talk to someone about it.
Arthur Blank is the worst. But yeah, this is like how not to handle a situation 101. And I think one of the really funny things, like we didn't talk about Bill Belichick signing with North Carolina to be their next head football coach
Yeah.
on the pod. But one of the things that's so funny with like Bill is it was down to like him and Raheem Morris to be the coach of the Atlanta Falcons this season.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of stories basically like Arthur Blank called Robert Kraft and Robert Kraft was like, oh yeah, like Bill's a pain in the ass and he's lost his fastball and he's washed up. And so like Arthur Blank and the people in Atlanta wanted to go with Raheem Morris. And people are like, oh, see, like Belichick couldn't even get the Falcons job and he's got to go to college because nobody in the NFL wants him and blah, blah, blah. The sheer level of incompetence exhibited by the Falcons at basically every level this offseason or this entire season should not be an indictment on Bill Belichick. Like Arthur Blank, chode owner, just Atlanta Falcons, chode team, just chode team. I think them not taking Belichick was a massive mistake on their part because you know what Bill Belichick wouldn't have done? Bill Belichick would not have signed Kirk Cousins to a massive fucking deal and then drafted Michael Penix and then announced in week 15 that they were cutting Kirk Cousins. Bill Belichick would not have done that shit. Because, like, say what you will about Bill and believe what you want to believe about Bill, but, like, shit did not get leaked from the Patriots organization
Yeah.
until Kraft started leaking shit on purpose.
Bill probably too just would have looked at Kirk Cousins and been like, is a quarterback coming off a torn Achilles that is pushing 40. He's not going to be able to move. He's not going to be able to hand the ball off.
Well, but
I can't.
also
Like, you can't run an offense like that.
with these type of injuries, though, like guys are better the second year after. Like,
Mhm.
especially like torn ACLs, torn Achilles are a little different, but these major tears, guys are better the second year. And is it not worth it after how much money you spent on Kirk to not bring him back into training camp and just see if he's better next season? You're not even interested in looking. You're announcing before your rookie quarterback has taken a single snap that you're done with him. You're like, yeah, he's out. He's done. And it does feel so Arthur Blank because it's like vindictive in a way where he's like, yeah, fuck this guy. We're getting him out of my organization where I'm in the Hall of Fame. What a joke.
Yeah, I mean,
What a joke.
I could see a situation where they would have to make the decision before they could, based on like the guarantees and all that. But we are months away from that. So,
Well, that's what the thing said is like
like
they're gonna cut him in March.
it didn't need to be done now.
Like fuck this guy 3 months from now, before his 10 million guaranteed for being on the roster is due. We need to tell people right now. But like, you're gonna spend so much money cutting him anyway. It's just like mind-boggling to me. And it just goes back to the Falcons' ineptitude and inability to run a competent organization that it's not even worth it to get a look at him next summer.
Yeah.
Not even worth it after what you spent on that guy. So, yeah, man. The hilarious thing is going to be when Kirk Cousins is a Jet. They're like, get rid of Aaron Rodgers. And they're like, you know what the solution is? Another old quarterback who's hurt. That's the answer. The
Yeah.
the last guy we kind of talked about, another team that has to make a very big quarterback decision this offseason. 49ers lose to the Miami Dolphins on Sunday, officially eliminating them from the playoffs. Thank God, because I could not read one more piece about how the 49ers were still a sleeper, even though they're like 6-10. They're just like, oh, but hold on. If the 49ers get it together.
Uh,
Brock Purdy's rookie deal is up.
I'm I'm a little sad it wasn't us that knocked them out of it though.
Let them know it was me. I was the one that killed Joffrey. I think you guys have the opportunity to do the little like dance on their grave
Yep.
this weekend. And I honestly, I kind of know what the long shot bet is going to be already. I don't know if they have game lines up because it's Monday, like game lines for like it's Monday Night Football. So like a full week from now.
There's probably like regular game lines up, but they may not have like the full swath of things up.
We'll look when we get to that segment, but it's
Yeah.
going to be Lions by a billion. Lions, Lions by a billion. But they have to make a decision on Purdy this offseason, who, quite frankly, has not been good this season. They are 6-8 with him at quarterback, completing 65% of his passes for 3,500 yards, 17 touchdowns, 10 picks. And he's probably going to be looking for a deal in the $40 to $50 million a year range.
Yeah.
After the couple seasons he's had where they, he made a Super Bowl, he made a deep playoff run. Are you comfortable giving him that kind of money right now?
No. But also, what other choice do they have?
Yeah. You probably have to sign Purdy to a massive deal this offseason, because if you don't, what are you doing? Are you trading a first round pick to the Vikings for JJ McCarthy? Is that not a tenable option for them? They're pick 11 right now. I should have included them on the teams that might need a quarterback. What would you rather have next season? Brock Purdy for 50 million or JJ McCarthy?
I don't think it'll happen. However, an interesting thing to maybe keep our eye on is a potential outcome if they don't extend Purdy. I could see Kyle Shanahan being like, I have reached the peak of this offense with this man before, and I can do it again.
Yeah, where was he?
And he'll be wrong.
He'll be wrong. My thing with Brock Purdy is like, so he was really good last year. 69% completion percentage, almost 4,300 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 picks. But was still like really rocky at some points, especially in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
When he doesn't have like the full complement of weapons like Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, like when all of these guys aren't healthy, I think we see the results that we saw this season where CMC and Ayuk were out of the lineup. Debo might be washed after they just gave him a huge
I
deal.
was gonna say, uh, in fairness to Purdy, when CMC and Ayuk are out of the lineup, that means he only has Kittle because Debo can't catch.
Yeah, Debo's a
Point
problem.
blank.
The fact that they gave massive deals to Ayuk and Debo may really be the downfall of this organization.
Yeah.
That may be a massive problem for them. And I wonder if they look back at it right now. And it's probably not a fair thing to say because Ayuk missed the whole season almost. But I really wonder if they would have taken that Pittsburgh deal going back to last offseason where they could have had, a pick and a player for Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, if they knew what they knew now, I could see it. Ayuk's really the only guy that they're probably gonna be able to move to help them like retool and get out of this. Um, unless someone like really wants to give them something for Purdy, but then you need to find a quarterback.
Yeah, I'm just going to tell you that Pittsburgh drafted 20th in the draft last year and took Troy Fatanu. BTJ went 23rd. And if you make that deal and just draft BTJ, you're in a way better position because, like, honestly, to me right now, after 15 weeks of football, BTJ is the best rookie wide receiver.
Oh yeah.
Right now, he's got almost 1,090 yards and 9 touchdowns while catching the ball from Mac Jones for half the season. Like he's QB proof. One of our favorite guys from the draft. Just throw that out there,
Purely QB proof at that point.
dude. When you're catching 2 touchdowns a week from Mac Jones, you're QB. He caught like a 68-yard touchdown from Mac Jones. Mac Jones can't throw it more than 5 yards, but that might have been a huge fucking mistake if they could have traded Ayuk, let somebody else give him $30 million a year, draft BTJ. I mean, like, hindsight's 2020, but I would have recommended that at the time. We both love BTJ in the draft.
Yeah.
That's why we have him on our dynasty team. That was our guy. We traded up to get him.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to Purdy. Like I don't know if I would pay, like, because you already have paid big deals to guys who haven't panned out, and it's like, do you keep making the same mistakes?
Yeah.
But if you let Purdy go, what are you doing? Because the expectation next year is that you're going to be a good team. It's not rebuild time when you're paying everybody on this team a shitload of money.
Yeah. Because you mentioned JJ McCarthy. I think it is reasonable to say that a year removed away without him playing and an ACL injury, it's reasonable to have there be some deterioration on the value of that asset. If you're San Francisco, like, is that a move you're willing to make?
The 11th pick in the draft is a bit rich, but like,
Yeah.
I don't know though. Like I think he's still an intriguing option,
Yeah.
but I think he's more of an intriguing option for like the Saints
Yeah.
than he is for San Francisco. Like
Hmm.
I think what does happen,
They've made bold moves before.
yeah, but I think what does happen is that they extend Purdy.
Yeah.
I think it's very difficult for them not to when he's made a Super Bowl with
Yeah.
them and he's their guy and he's been their guy. But man, like watching Purdy this season and again, like Sunday against Miami, I'm just like, he's a game manager. He is like the highest end of what somebody like Mac Jones could be,
Yeah.
but like a little bit more athleticism. But like he's a very, very high end game manager, but like I don't necessarily think he makes other people better.
He's game manager is not like a one size fits all title, right? Because you could call like Tua and Goff, both game managers, and he doesn't reach the peaks that either of those guys can reach. He just doesn't have that.
Tua Tagovailoa is a really good comp for Brock Purdy, though,
Yeah.
because when you're in this system and everything's going well and you got all your weapons and
Hmm.
everybody's playing well and it's 70 degrees outside, these guys can be great. And maybe
Yep.
Purdy, like you said, doesn't reach the same ceiling that Tua reaches on a game to game basis.
Yeah.
But both of those guys are guys where if small things go wrong or your weapons are banged up or someone's not out there, you are not elevating this offense.
Yeah.
Like the offenses those guys play in elevate them, where I differentiate that from Jared Goff, where I definitely think the offense that Jared Goff plays in elevates him. But
But he elevates the guys that are also in the offense.
yes, I agree with that. That like when,
Yeah.
Monty wasn't out there on Sunday,
Yeah.
the offense still looked excellent against the Bears because Goff played very well. And like,
Hmm.
you don't throw for 500 yards and 5 touchdowns like he did a couple weeks ago against the Bills and be like, yeah, this guy is just part of the offense. And like, yes, I know Tua's done that before as well.
Yep.
But I think Jared Goff can still play through like adverse conditions and like missing guys
Yep.
where Tua and Brock Purdy, the situation has to be absolutely perfect or else
Hmm.
those guys are not, they're not the same guys.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's a good comp, even though like, if I'm ranking quarterbacks, I'm still probably putting Tua ahead of Brock Purdy,
Yeah.
which I don't like to say that because I'm not a huge Tua fan, but uh I would definitely put Goff ahead of both of them. But like, man, Brock Purdy, I don't know if he's a top 15 guy. And I don't know how excited I am to pay a guy who's not in the top 15, $50 million a season
Yeah. And like
or 40 million.
that is the unfortunate reality of the quarterback market is that like the guys that you kind of know you feel like you need to upgrade from, but don't have a feasible way to do so, you're kind of just in that rock and a hard place spot of you got to pay them or you got to rebuild. Like,
I think we see this problem way more in the NBA though,
yeah,
with superstars where like Bradley Beal is a good example
yes,
where it's like the Washington's like, well, we have to give him the super max. What else are we going to do? And it's like, you don't have to. You don't have to do anything. But they're like, well, if we don't, then like, A lot of quarterbacks are in the same situation as these, like, I don't even want to call Bradley Beal a superstar. I just want to say he's like a above average player in a bad situation.
well, well-known player.
Yes. Good. Not great. A good player who can command like that type of salary from a bad team. And the team's like, oh, we pretty much have to. And it's a massive mistake. You never have to give someone $60 million a year. You never have to, unless it's like Giannis or Luca or Jokic or someone like that. But these guys who are like Bradley Beal has not been in our top 25 for ever. I've
Yeah,
never voted for Bradley Beal in my top 25, yet he's paid like a top 25 asset because of the situation. And
yeah,
I see Brock Purdy being in a similar boat where it's like, well, he's not a top 15 quarterback, but like we had to pay him because what else were we going to do? And I think that we just laid out on this podcast that there are other viable options for the San Francisco 49ers.
yeah.
Listen to me, John Lynch. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to give someone $50 million. And if you're just handing it out, I'll take it.
The answer is that there is no solution to this that doesn't involve risk,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It's not
And
like giving
like,
Mahomes $50 million where it's just like, okay, yeah,
yeah,
have
right.
whatever you want, Nikola Jokic.
That's It's an underpay, honestly. Uh,
Can I pay
but
you more?
but like I think we've seen enough to know that like this this isn't enough. Like you need more out of your quarterback than what he has given you so far. Can he potentially give you more in the future? Sure. But if you're gambling on that, then it is still a gamble.
Yeah. It's big risk. This is why we don't get paid to make these decisions.
Yeah.
So I'm very gun shy about giving someone like Brock Purdy that kind of money because I think you see what happens when you overpay guys, and it's hamstringing your organization that's already kind of financially hamstrung.
Yeah.
And I think they're just kind of at the point where they're like, hey, in for a penny, in for a pound. We've already given Debo and Ayuk massive deals. We can't not have a quarterback,
Yeah.
right? So, um, before we go to America's most favorite segment, I just want to give a shout out to former Patriots quarterback Mac the Mac Attack Jones, who has helped the Patriots out more this season as the Jaguars quarterback than he ever did as New England's quarterback. One, he wins a game for Jacksonville, taking them out of the second pick and moving them behind the Patriots. Then this past weekend, he loses an absolutely atrocious game to the Las Vegas Raiders, moving Las Vegas from the second pick to the sixth pick and moving the Patriots up to the number two pick. Like the two best things Mac Jones has ever done for the Patriots organization is suck so bad last year that we were able to draft Drake May and this. So thank you, Mac. Because we are now up to the number two pick. I'm keeping my fingers crossed we can lose out because like we're actually in a position now where if the Titans, Raiders, like any of those teams I named, any of the teams except for the Giants who need a quarterback, actually do value Shador Sanders and Cam Ward, that we're in a good position to trade. And I'm looking at a trade where it's like, hey, Vegas, give me this year's first, this year's second, and next year's first, and you can get your quarterback of the future. And no matter who they draft, if Antonio Pierce is their coach this year, I know we're picking in the top five next year. So I'm starting to get excited about that. But honestly, like the more I read about Travis Hunter, the more excited I get. I was reading this story the other day about how he used like NIL money and like other funds he's received to actually be like one of Colorado's biggest boosters and flew 50 of his teammates out to New York with him for the Heisman ceremony so they could all be together and celebrate. And I'm like, I actually like really like this kid. I really
Yeah, it's
do.
pretty
The
cool.
more I read about him, the more I like really like him. And I'm just like, it's still so hard for me with this positional flexibility thing. Like, what are you going to do with him? I do not trust Gerard Mayo and Covington and anyone else associated with the Patriots to have a solid plan in place for him. But I'm like, God, can we just get him? And then we have him and May and Gonzo and we start building a culture around those guys. Because Drake May's great. I love like he came out after the loss to the Bills yesterday and was like, all this talk about Mayo is bullshit. We got his back. He's our coach, blah, blah, blah. And while that may be the dumbest thing I've heard anybody say this season, I love that attitude from my
Yeah.
quarterback who is not coming out here and being like, we need to fire this guy. Fuck him. Because that's just the wrong thing. It's not like Mac throwing a pissy fit on the
Yeah.
field. Drake's like, dude, I know the offensive line. So, he's like, he never says the offensive line sucks or the wide receivers suck. He's just like, I got to be better.
Yeah.
I got to help us win games. It's nobody's fault but mine. And I'm like, that's the leader I want. And so like, let me bring in like a high character kid who's super talented, like Travis. I don't know, man. I'm starting to. It might just be because I keep seeing us get Travis and Mox, but I'm really starting to like him, and I am probably going to do a total 180 on him by the draft and be like, this is the best player. We need Travis Hunter.
Fair.
I'm sorry about your girlfriend, Travis. Do you see that story?
No.
his girlfriend went on like Instagram Live and talked about how Travis Hunter used to drive her to parties and wait outside for her because he was trying to like keep his nose clean and not get in trouble. So he would like let her go into the party and he would just like stay in his car and wait for her to come out. And then a picture of her like twerking on some dude at a party from Halloween came out. And it's like, dude, she's obviously going in there and cheating on you. The fuck?
Yeah. I don't know what he thought was happening in those parties. But having been to college parties before, there were literally no dudes in there who were not trying to take advantage of Travis's absence.
I love you, Travis. Just for every guy who's been taken advantage of from someone they dated and been treated like shit from someone they dated, we love you, Travis. Just you do you, man. Come to New England. I'll probably get a Travis Hunter jersey and hang it up with my Tom Brady and my Drake May jersey and just be like, this is the future. Drake May and a bunch of cucks. All right. Time for America's favorite segment. Olds and Scolds from week. I keep saying 15. It was week 16, wasn't it?
Yes.
Week 16 of the NFL season. We only have 2 more weeks left, unfortunately. My week to go first, I
Sure.
believe. Still can't get it right. We just recorded last Wednesday. All right. My bold is Minnesota wide receiver Justin Jefferson.
He good at catch.
He very good at catch. He so good at catch. He had 10 catches for 144 and 2 touchdowns on Sunday. Justin Jefferson is now 6th all time for most receiving yards through a player's first 6 seasons. The list is Randy Moss at number 1, Torrey Holt number 2, Jerry Rice number 3, Calvin Johnson number 4, Julio Jones number 5, Justin Jefferson number 6. So 6 all time through your first 6 seasons for receiving yards. Matt, Justin Jefferson has not completed his 5th season yet.
Yeah.
He has 2 games left in his 5th season, and he is 6 all time for most receiving yards through 6 seasons with arguably, 5 of the top 10 greatest receivers of all time? Moss, Holt, Rice, Megatron, and Julio? He's 900 yards away from Randy Moss's number with 2 games left this season. He's going to blow that out of the fucking water. He's not only good at catch, he may be best at catch for any receiver we've ever seen through 5 seasons. Like, I feel like a lot of people are like, wow, what would it take for, whoever's been in the league forever? Like, what would it take for Devontae Adams to catch Jerry Rice? And it's like, dude, if anybody's going to catch Jerry Rice for receiving yards ever, like, I don't think it'll ever happen because of the longevity required to that number. But god damn, Justin Jefferson is off to a good start.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, I think it's really hard for the vast majority of positions to definitively say this is the best guy in the league at that position. I think, like, even at quarterback, we should all just be like, yeah, Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. But I think
you also have to watch what Josh Allen has done this year and Lamar Jackson has done this year and compare that with the notably less visually appealing play that Mahomes has had this year.
Well, the thing that's funny with them is like, and obviously Mahomes put up the insane monster stats at the beginning of his career.
Yeah.
But the Mahomes versus Allen and Lamar thing has kind of turned into early Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning.
Yeah.
Where it's like, yeah, your guy puts up all the fancy stats and whatever, but my guy wins.
Mm-hmm.
And that's more important. And it's still kind of that debate in 2024 where it's like, damn, like Lamar and Allen are having phenomenal quarterback seasons. And like, honestly, I'm gonna look up the thing right now, but honestly, like to me, just personally, I think Lamar should have pulled ahead of Josh Allen for MVP this week with like Josh playing like shit against a shit Patriots team and Lamar throwing 3 touchdowns in a massive game against the Steelers. But it's Josh Allen minus 550, Lamar plus 400. Lamar plays on Christmas Day coming up, and like I honestly might sprinkle a little bit on Lamar here, but I digress.
Yeah.
I think there's less of a debate for who's the best receiver in the league than maybe any other position. Like
Yeah.
it is Justin Jefferson, and I think like 95+% of people will just be like, yeah, it's Justin Jefferson. He might be the best football player that we have in the NFL right now. To like have Kirk Cousins and put up the stats he did and like switch to Sam Darnold and just be like, yeah, I'm not missing a fucking step this year. That's some insane shit.
Yeah.
Let me see what it
Absolutely
is.
wild.
Yeah, he's up to almost 1,400 yards and 10 touchdowns this season, which is like not that great of a year for him with what he's done in the past. He played 10 games last year and had 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns. Before that, 1809, 1616, and 1,400. And it's like he probably will get up to like 15, 1,600 in the next
Yeah.
couple games. But goddamn, he's so good. So good. Who's your bold for week
Yes.
16?
Jaden Daniels.
Mm.
Uh, huge statement game for him. Throws for 5 touchdowns, against the Eagles. But more importantly, like the come from behind victory against a division rival in a game that they really needed to have in terms of like solidifying themselves in the playoff picture. Like absolutely like big balls moment. Like he definitely this I would say is the biggest moment by like any of these rookies this year.
I would say it's probably the biggest moment for a rookie quarterback in ever. Like,
Yeah.
I don't remember, like, especially
And
because the
yeah.
last couple of weeks, the narrative has really been shifting. Like, we talked about this last week where the Super Bowl favorite or the NFC favorite has really been shifting away from Detroit and more towards Philly. And it's like, God,
Yeah.
Philly's such a complete team and their defense is so good. And through a
Hmm.
very large portion of that game, even without Jalen Hurts, the Philly defense was suffocating
Yeah.
the should be fighting Georges and had 5 turnovers. And it's like, God damn, this defense is maybe like enough to make them a Super Bowl contender on its own, even without Jalen Hurts. And
Yeah.
then Jaden Daniels just like, nah, fuck that. And he's whipping touchdowns and huge passes against this like seemingly unbeatable secondary. And he's just all of a sudden is like cooking them at
Yeah.
home. I don't remember the last time a rookie quarterback had a moment that big.
Yeah. No, it was absolutely huge. And for anyone who wants to kind of like undercut it by saying that it happened against a backup quarterback, I will remind you that the Eagles' only Super Bowl was led by a backup quarterback. So, like,
Why?
Philly among all franchises does not get to play that card.
This is like every week now we have to talk about a horrific Patriots loss. Last year or last week it was the Jets divisional round
Well, maybe
game.
don't
Now it's
dominate
Nick
the NFL for
Foles.
20 years
Oh,
and it won't be so easy to do.
I think that we should talk about a great Patriots win. Matt, we were down 28-3 to Atlanta once. The Atlanta fans are like, we've already had enough on this podcast. I actually really doubt the Atlanta fans are still listening. But yeah, yep. Big balls moment for that guy. And I
Yeah.
think shifted the narrative again back to like, I think like the narrative has kind of changed now where it was like, oh, it's Detroit's NFC to lose. And then all of a sudden it was Philly. And now it's just like, okay, well, this thing's wide open. But I really like the way the Lions bounce back. So we'll see how
Yeah.
the next couple of games go. I like You guys really need that bye.
Yeah.
Really need that bye with
Yeah,
your 22 guys on IR and a lot of guys who are trying to come back. It's just like nobody needs that first round bye as bad as the Lions do.
for sure.
Scold for week 16. And this is more of like a season long scold, but mine is the, I don't even know who it is, the NFL scheduling department. Whoever puts together the schedules for the NFL. This is another thing you and I talked about yesterday.
Yeah.
The NFL decided at the beginning of the season, they're like, we want to have football games on Christmas Day every year. And we don't care what day Christmas Day falls on. This is a new thing for us. Fuck the NBA. It's our day now. And they wanted to put together a package of Christmas Day games and put it out to bidders. And so they needed to have premier teams to do so. So they pick the Chiefs, the Texans, the Ravens, and the Steelers. And they're like, these are premier teams. These are teams we're confident are going to be good this season, and that these are going to be important games in week 17. And they're right to a large degree, especially for the AFC North.
Yeah.
So they put out this package. Netflix gets involved. Netflix ends up winning it. And they're like, great. Netflix is like, we're going to have our first 2 live NFL games on Christmas. This is great. But it creates a situation where now we're playing football on a fucking Wednesday.
Yep.
NFL football on a Wednesday. So they're like, you know what we need to do is put these 4 teams on Saturday so that they have the same break between the Saturday, Wednesday game that they do between a typical Sunday, Thursday game. Oh, the college football playoffs are that day? Who cares? Nobody's going to watch that shit. The NFL's on. So you screw over the NCAA and college football, which, like, I'm not going to shed a tear for the NCAA, but I'm just saying it was a weird choice to have NFL games on at the exact same time as your developmental league, basically.
Yeah.
Odd decision there. Also, what it leads to is that they signed a deal with Amazon for Thursday night football before the season or last season or whatever. And it gives Amazon the ability to flex out a game. So Thursday night football this week was supposed to be Cincinnati versus Cleveland. And Amazon goes to the NFL and they're like, we don't want Cincinnati versus Cleveland. That game is not good. We want a better game. And the NFL is like, oh shit. We already put all these premier teams on this like Saturday, Wednesday thing. We can't put them on a Thursday. So they're like, what game do you want? And they're like, we want Denver and the Chargers. Well, the NFL bylaws say that Denver cannot play a Thursday road game because they already played a Thursday road game. And the NFL bylaws say you will not play 2 Thursday road games. So the NFL has to go to Denver and convince them to say yes to this deal. And they desperately need them to say yes because they got to keep Amazon happy. So there's some shenanigans that go on there. Sean Payton says, fuck it, let's do it. I don't care. I want to be on primetime TV. Leads to a pretty bad loss for the Denver Broncos. But more importantly now, between these 4 teams that are playing on Christmas, they will have played 3 NFL football games in 11 days. And then also, like, the Broncos and Chargers got all fucky. And they've had to play a bunch of games in a bunch of days too. The NFL bylaws say nothing about a Saturday or Wednesday game, how many road games you can play compared to like a Thursday night game. So now, like, teams are getting screwed that way. There's a lot of like really screwy stuff.
Yep.
And for a league that like every year they're like, God, you know what we care about is player safety. The NFL only cares about money, and they will do literally anything for money. And
hey
that's
guys,
what this
do you want to play 3 games in 11 days? Because you're going to do that multiple times.
This is shameless cash grab year 2. I always call the Super Wild Card weekend the NFL shameless cash grab weekend. They moved it up this year. We're going to have 2 of them. We have shameless cash grab Christmas and shameless cash grab wild card weekend coming our way soon. But more importantly, to me personally, because I am in the championship of the fantasy football league after winning this week against my nephew, I am relying on Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews in a very big way. And they are 2 of the guys who have to play 3 games in 11 days. And I don't know what I'm going to get out of Lamar Jackson against Houston this weekend. And I'm not happy about it. And if he plays like there are very important fantasy guys on all 4 of these teams, honestly. Like for Pittsburgh, it might just be the defense and George Pickens, but still important. Mahomes has been like banged up. We don't know what's going to happen with him. You got like guys on Houston, like Nico Collins and Joe Mixon and all these guys. The NFL just does not give a fuck about fantasy football because people like companies that do fantasy football do not pay the NFL as much as like gambling companies do, and as
Yeah.
much as Netflix was willing to do to put on Wednesday games. But a lot of NFL popularity is driven specifically off of fantasy football. And I just feel like you should care about it a lot more than you do. And you should especially care that I'm trying to win my fantasy football championship this weekend. And it's not fair for Lamar Jackson to not have the rest he deserves. Absolute bullshit. I'm not ready for this. I was like stressed out on Sunday. Matt can attest to this because he was with me yesterday. It was stressful. I had to go from this stressful fantasy football matchup right into a stressful fantasy hockey ending.
He was tripping.
Now I only get 2 days off and I'm back at it on Christmas. NFL, you're ruining my family's Christmas because I'm going to make a total ass of myself yelling at Lamar Jackson at 4:30 on Wednesday. I hope you're happy. You know, when I go on these big rants is because it personally affects me in some way or another.
Yes.
It's never really for the good of the players. I give less of a shit about player safety than the NFL does. I just want to win this fantasy football championship.
Yeah, I mean, they have better health coverage than we do, so.
Yeah. Who's your scold for week 16?
Uh,
Not that you could top that.
no, piggybacking off of where this started, God knows where it ended. But
Nobody cares about your fantasy team, Adam. My family cares because their Christmas is going to be largely dependent on it.
Yes. Maddox's presents get returned.
Maddox's presents are going to get destroyed if Lamar Jackson gets hurt.
Sean Payton though. You had mentioned that the Broncos agreed to switch it up to play on Thursday, even though they didn't necessarily have to. Sean Payton was the one who greenlit that, as I am to understand. Which that is all well and good. However, when you make that decision and then you go and play that game, do not go to a post-game presser and use a short week as a reason for not having the team ready to handle what unfolded in the game ahead of them. That was a level of difficulty that you chose, Sean. You don't get to use that as an excuse.
That is a very fair point. Oh, Sean. I wonder if he didn't know that they were going to leak that he's the one that greenlit it. Like the NFL specifically came to him and they're like, "Are you okay with this?" And he's like, "Yeah, bring it on. We want to be on prime time." And you lost. And now you get to go to Buffalo in round 1. Have fun. Gambling picks for week 17. Last week we did good. Bounce back. We had a negative week in week 15, positive week this week. Ladd McConkey and Cortland Sutton both have 50 or more receiving yards as Cortland Sutton hits it on the dot with 50 on Thursday Night Football. We had the under. They went over, which that game only could have gone one of two ways: is a billion points or zero. The Bucs lost to the Cowboys last night. Awful game. Awful game for the Bucs. They lose. We had them -4. Had Rams -3.5 against the Jets. They do cover that. And then the best bet of the week was Jahmyr Gibbs to score the first touchdown of the Lions-Bears game because they gave him about 20 carries from the 1-yard line to start that game. They're like, "You're getting it in," which is what we said last week, is that There was a point to prove with Monty out, and that, God damn it, Dan Campbell was going to prove it, and he
Yeah.
sure as hell did. So basically made back everything we lost in week 15. So that's a pretty good week.
Yeah.
Always love to hit the long shot. For week 17, here's the deal. You can pick any bet from a Wednesday game or the Thursday game because the NFL got all fucky on us and we're doing it back. So the options are Kansas City at the Steelers. Chiefs are favored by 3. Ravens at Texans. Ravens favored by 5.5. Or Seahawks at Bears. Seahawks favored by 3.5. Where do you want to go for the let's call it the early slate of games?
Lamar's anytime touchdown is plus 210. I'll take that.
Good God, I need that one to hit. As I've made it abundantly clear, Lamar Jackson is my fantasy football quarterback. I'm just going to believe in Lamar. His over under for passing and rushing combined is 270.5. So we're going to go over 270.5 combined passing and rushing yards for Lamar Jackson. So that is minus 115. Matt, where are you going for the weekend? So this is Saturday through Monday night.
Yeah, they don't have the props up.
It's hard.
Yeah, that makes this a lot harder. I was gonna try and shoot for like an Anthony Richardson anytime touchdown because he's kind of been pretty steady on those lately.
It's a tough day to record because they also don't have the alternate game lines up.
Yep. I will take the Eagles to cover. The spread set at 9. And that's minus 112.
I looked at that one. I also was looking at Commanders minus 4 against the Falcons this week, but I am going to go the Detroit Lions minus 3.5 at the San Francisco 49ers on Monday Night Football.
Yeah.
That is minus 108, which is the one I thought you were going to pick. I hate to do this, but the long shot bet of the week is difficult because the alternate game lines and player props are not posted. So I can't pick a first touchdown. I can't pick 2 touchdowns. So here is my promise to the fans. The long shot bet of the week is whatever number for Lions 49ers makes it plus 300.
Yeah.
So Lions minus, it's probably about Lions minus 14.5.
Yeah.
Is going to be my guess. So when they post the alternate lines on Thursday, if you guys want to know what the number is, look it up. But whatever it is when they post the alternate lines that makes it around plus 300, so plus 300, plus 310, whatever it is, that's the bet. Lions by 1 billion, baby.
Yeah,
this is revenge.
Yep. The only reason I didn't take that game is because I knew this was going to be our long shot bet. So
I'm taking
spread it around.
I'm taking that game anywhere I can get it, baby. 3.5 is not enough.
No, not even anywhere close.
We talked about this with the Jahmyr Gibbs first touchdown last week. If there is a point to prove, Dan Campbell's going to prove it. And there is a point to prove against the San Francisco 49ers after what happened in the NFC Championship game last year. So,
yes, 100%.
But that is it for us. As always, Fouled Out can be found on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Cast, Overcast, anywhere you get your podcast. You can hit us up on Gmail, fouledoutsports@gmail.com, and you can find our videos on TikTok at Fouled Out Sports Podcast. It is a long name, but you can't miss it. Lots of football coming your way, ladies and gentlemen. Again, we're in the midst of this crazy football time. Christmas Day, Chiefs and Steelers at 1 p.m., Ravens and Texans at 4:30. You got a Thursday night football game. You have 3 football games on Saturday, NFL football games, Chargers, Pats, Broncos, Bengals, Cards, Rams. That Broncos-Bengals game is pretty important.
Yeah.
Then a full Sunday of football going into Monday Night Football. That's in the NFL. The NCAA. So Tuesday next week, You have Penn State versus Boise State to kick off the second round of the college football playoff. January 1st, New Year's Day, you have the other 3 second round games. So basically, in the next week and a half until you guys hear from us again, a shitload of NFL football plus all the college football bowl games. Then early next week, we're looking at that Lions 49ers game on Monday Night Football, followed by a playoff game Tuesday, 3 playoff games Wednesday. Then we're back to Thursday Night Football with the NFL. Just watch the football. Just watch the football and listen to the podcast. Matt and I will be back next Thursday, which is January 2nd, 2025, with a fan favorite podcast, the Revisiting Preseason Predictions, and looking at what we got right and what we got wrong from the preseason. So we'll go over all of our picks for the divisions, the playoffs, the awards, and then we will give you all of the takes. Segment that was really popular last year was what we got, like just the right and wrong of me being like, well, we got right, blah, blah, blah. Here's what we got wrong, blah, 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 and just like alternating. So we're bringing that back. And then the first full week of January, we will be here on January 9th to break down the wild card weekend.
Yes.
Super wild card cash grab weekend. NFL playoffs, baby. Let's go. But until then, Matt, my friend, it was really good to see you this weekend, and I will talk to you soon.
Yes.
All right. Bye, guys. Have a great holiday, great Christmas.
Yes.
Bye, Mom.
Take care. Bye, Robin.